one of the biggest messaging mistakes that I see people make, even when they go through our program, is explaining versus persuading. What the heck does that mean? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about in this episode. So keep listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. I need to calm down with those intros. Every time I do, my Google goes crazy, and it just did right now. But yeah, welcome back to another episode. Today, I guess I'm always excited to talk about things we're going to talk about on the podcast. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing episodes on them. But this one holds a special place in my heart because it is probably one of the most common mistakes that I see with messaging, even with our students. And I think the way that people have been, I don't know if it's the way we've been taught. I don't know if it's the way we've been led. I don't know what it really is, but I do know that the way in which most people communicate is from the perspective of explaining versus persuading. And again, I don't know if this is what we've been taught or if this is just like a natural human instinct to try to explain things to people. But one of the biggest problems people have with content and sales in general is they focus more on explaining versus persuading. And one of the easiest ways for me to explain, ironically explain what the difference is when people explain, they're basically coming from a perspective of convincing why they are right or why they are the best. And where the focus when you explain something is on you. It's on you, it's on your product, it's on your company, and you're trying to explain to someone why you are the best, why they should listen to you, why they should do something. And one of the reasons why it doesn't work is because the thing that's going to cause someone to not listen, to not do that, to not take action is not usually based off of logic. It's based off of beliefs. And as you know, if you've been a listener to the podcast, if you've are inside our programs, you've listened to me speak anywhere, you understand that beliefs are really everything. And the thing that's scary about beliefs is that most people don't recognize that they are beliefs. They don't know it. They seem real. And to give you an example of this, if I always go to my default story is if you fail at webinars 5 times, you might automatically just think webinars don't work. They don't work for me. I'm not good at webinars. And it may take you 5 failed webinars to get to that point. But what happens is your brain automatically thinks that thought for you. And it's not true. Like if you thought webinars don't work because I failed 5 times, well, there might be someone who's killing it at webinars, but they failed 15 times before they made it work. And their mind just never created that belief, but yours did for some reason. And then what happens is most people live their life as if these beliefs are real. And look, this isn't just my perspective. This isn't just my viewpoint on it. This is literally proven through science. And if you listen to Dr. Shannon Irvin, she tells you all the brain science on it, all the documentation, all the studies. It's literally proven science that your mind will automatically create beliefs and automations inside of your head to save on energy because you have to make decisions. Like I think it's like 20,000, 40,000 decisions a day. The mind will automate things. And that's what a belief is. It's an automated thought or way of seeing things. And we call those beliefs. And the reason why this is so important is because if you're explaining things to people, you're not addressing the belief that they have. And a lot of times belief is not created from logic. And the webinar example is a perfect case of that. So if someone failed at webinars 5 times, they automatically believe, okay, I'm not good at webinars, or webinars don't work. Well, they didn't logically like sit down and think of the research. Okay, well, let me find the studies on this, and how do I know the 6th one won't work? And okay, what's the data showing me? Okay, the average person is looking at this, and okay, the average person needs 6 webinars before they see results. And no, that's logic, right? This was a belief-based, non-logical belief that was formed. And a lot of the times, the things that are holding us back are beliefs. Now, look, not all beliefs are bad. This isn't to say beliefs are bad. What this is to say is that when people form or create decisions, it's usually from a belief-based background. And again, what I mean by that is if I wanted to go buy a new car and I believed that I needed a new car, and I went into the dealership to go buy a new car, I already knew what I wanted. Right? I already convinced myself this is what I needed. This is what I wanted. The salesperson's not going to have to do a lot of work in order to sell me, right? Because my decision was already made. And most of the time I didn't really, maybe I used logic, but maybe I didn't. But the belief to buy the new car, the decision to buy the new car was already made. Whereas if someone went into the dealership and they were on the fence about buying a car, and the dealership, the salesperson at the dealership started talking to them about, here's the horsepower, here's the features, here's the power windows, the power whatever. They start explaining why this car is good. What they're not doing is speaking to the belief that's preventing me from buying the car. Because I can tell you right now, if I was unsure about buying a car, the fact that it has power seats and power windows is not going to convince me to all of a sudden buy the car, because the decision isn't dependent on power windows or not power windows. The salesperson should be talking to the beliefs and then poking holes in the beliefs that I have that are preventing me from buying that car. And that's the difference between explaining and persuading, is that persuading is focused on the beliefs or the reality that people have, and revealing that it's flawed and showing its flaws and showing that it's causing them suffering. That's persuading, because now you're getting to the root of where that decision is coming from. And the problem is that most people try to explain. And this is vital, not just for salespeople, not just for business owners, but even customer support. You have an angry customer and you approaching them from a logical standpoint. You agreed to this. You said this. This is our policy, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't really make them feel any better or reverse their feelings of wanting a refund or returning something, because the decision to refund something came from a belief that they had. The belief might be, this program is not right for me. So if customer support would go and talk and communicate to that belief, to poke holes into that belief and show them that it is actually what they needed, or found out what is it that you think that you need. Oh, guess what? That's what the program is here to do. Why don't we give it another 7 days? Why don't we give it another 30 days before refunding? Well, now we have a much better chance of actually saving that sale, because we're speaking and communicating using persuasion versus explaining. And I get it, like persuasion may have some negative connotations and feelings and beliefs around it. But there's ways to do it ethically and there's ways to do it unethically or not ethically. But when you have something that can help people, and you recognize people have beliefs that are causing suffering, persuading can free them from that suffering. And, if I had this thing, well, let me just put it this way. One of the ways that people can get tricked into thinking that they're persuading when they're actually explaining, and I'm going to help you identify if you're explaining or not here in a second, but one of the things that can trick people in it is if they are making sales. And if people are making sales and they're like, oh, I don't need to listen to Brandon, I'm making sales, I'm probably not explaining. You might be explaining. And the only way, I'm telling you right now, the only way that you're going to make sales when you're explaining in your content and in your marketing and in your copy is if the person is already convinced that they need this problem solved. Because then you can explain, and that person's going to make the buying decision off of features, not persuasion. What I mean by this is, for example, if I knew, like I just bought a truck a little bit ago. So I got a Toyota Tacoma. I already knew that I wanted a Toyota Tacoma. I already knew that. The decision in my head to buy that truck had already been made. So what I did is I walked in, I negotiated. I already knew what I wanted in my head. I negotiated. The sale was very easy for the salesperson. And the salesperson did exactly what most salespeople do, is they started to explain the benefits. They started to explain the features. It's 4x4. Oh, this is the TRD Pro. So it has all these other things like leather seats and blah, 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 blah. And he made this sale. But he didn't make the sale because he was a great salesman and persuaded me and took care of beliefs that were preventing me from buying. He was explaining. And so that may trick him into thinking, I'm doing a great job. But he was already just giving me the thing that I already made a decision that I wanted to buy. Okay. So if you have people that are coming to you and they're like, I already need the problem solved, I have this problem, I want it solved. You can explain and you can make sales to them. And that's what a lot of people do. There's a lot of people that are really good at finding exactly who has this one problem that they've already made a decision they want fixed and getting their stuff in front of them. You can build a business that way. But I can tell you right now, you're going to be much more powerful if you learn to persuade, especially inside of your content. Now, had I gone into the dealership and not been convinced that I want to buy a car in that moment, which I did. I went 6 months ago, I went into the dealership and I was not convinced that I wanted a Toyota Tacoma. And the salesperson started to talk to me about the features of the truck. And the features of the truck weren't enough to convince me to buy because I had other concerns. I had other beliefs going around inside of my head. That if he would have persuaded and identified and asked the questions that pulled out what those beliefs were, and then he started to show the flaws in that thinking, I would have probably have gone and bought the truck. He didn't take care of my objections. Okay. So here's a couple ways for you to identify if you're explaining or if you're persuading. If you talk benefits and features in your content, your copy, your messaging, any of that stuff, sales mechanisms, you're probably explaining. Okay. If mostly all of your content and sales material is information, then you're probably explaining. And what I mean by information is step-by-steps, tutorials. By the way, we do want some of that stuff. We do want that. But if most of it, 70% or more of it, information, tutorials, step-by-steps, with no consideration of what beliefs are, how to build rapport, how to get trust, how to take care of objections, how to go against industry norms, without any of that stuff, you're probably explaining in a lot of your content. And again, what explaining is convincing that you're right, convincing that you're the best, or convincing that you know all the information. Those are clearly, that's you focusing on you and not you focusing on the audience and the beliefs that form their reality and showing the flaws and the parts that are causing them suffering. If you are trying to be right, then you are likely explaining because you're focusing on your own stuff. If you're focusing on your product, versus someone else's beliefs, you're probably explaining. My product has 10 modules. My product has this. My product has that. My product has this. We just finished our biggest launch that we've ever done. And our runway was 3 months long. So from December, we opened up cart in March. It was like 2 to 3 months long. You guys, and by the way, I spent over $250,000 between ads and salaries and the team and putting up a video series. It's probably even closer to above $300,000 in that 3-month period. Do you know when I talked about the modules and the courses and the videos and the PDFs and the downloads? Do you know when I talked about all that stuff? On March 8th, when our cart opened. On March 8th. We had 1,400 people waiting for us to open up cart, waiting to buy the program. And I had never talked about a module. I never talked about a download. I never talked about a training video. Why? Because I was able to communicate. I was able to persuade. I was able to show them that these things that they've been doing are causing suffering in their life. I was able to remove objections. I was able to create demand. And that's ultimately what persuading is. It's creating demand. It's showing people, here's the thing that's holding you back that you didn't even realize. I'm going to bring that to your attention. I'm going to shift these beliefs that you have around content because it's keeping you suffering. And as soon as you start to do that, you start to dismantle things that they thought to be true. And then you show them, hey, this is the thing that's actually causing you suffering. You know what that does? It causes a demand for them to want to fix that problem. For example, if I said to you, Gary Vaynerchuk, if I said how-to content is not how to grow an audience fast, look at Gary Vaynerchuk, doesn't do a single traditional how-to video, but he grew the fastest. You know what I just did? I just created demand for what Gary Vaynerchuk does. And I ended the belief that how-to content is how to build an audience fast. So I dismantled the belief, but I also created demand for something else. That's why influence, that's why persuasion and communication styles, everything. Okay, so a lot of places, so now that you know what explaining is, let's talk about the next phase, which is places that explaining will happen. Explaining will happen a lot in brochures, almost everyone's marketing, webinars, video series. It'll happen in sales presentations, presentations in general, talks, different things like that, and a lot of upfront content. So just to give you another example of this, when you go look at the best TED Talks out there, you go look at like the best TED Talks, the ones that have the most amount of views, the ones that people are raving about, you look at their presentation, and then you look at one of the most boring presentations you've ever seen in your entire life. Maybe it happens inside of companies that you worked for, but they're usually tactical strategies, step-by-step information. What's the difference? Why are those presentations, the TED Talks, still giving you amazing lessons? You're learning, but these boring presentations that will never even be allowed on TED Talk stage are all step-by-step information. Let me explain to you the problem and let me explain to you the solution. Let me blah, 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 blah. While these other presentations still give you great information, great lessons, but they pull you in. That's the difference between influence, persuasion, communication style, creating demand versus explaining. Okay, so there's a lot of places those are going to happen. Now, to me, persuading is the focus on the beliefs that you know the audience has, and you're moving them and their perspective around. So let me give you an example of this. If I was to focus on marketing that I wanted to be a little bit more influential, a little bit more of a persuasion focus on it, I would look at the industry and my audience and go, great, what beliefs do they have? Where is their thinking? What do they believe to be true that might not be true? What's going on that they haven't realized yet? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. If I was a coffee shop, I'm going to give you two different examples here. So if I love talking about coffee shops because I eventually want to open one up. So that's the example that I'm going to use. But if I open up a coffee shop, and let's say Starbucks was my biggest competitor, what most people don't realize about coffee is that coffee shouldn't taste bitter, right? So most people don't realize that coffee, if coffee were high quality beans, they were roasted properly, and the coffee was brewed properly, it shouldn't be bitter. You should be able to drink it black. And every different coffee bean has a different flavor to it. Most people don't know this. Most people don't know when you brew coffee, you want to brew it, you want to grind the beans fresh right there as you're going to make the coffee. And then when you do that, you need to release the gases. So they call it, I think it's ballooning or something like that, where you take a water that has to be 180 degrees and you pour it over the ground coffee beans, and then they will start to bubble. And that bubbling is what allows the bitterness to escape the coffee beans. Most people don't realize this. It just hasn't been a thing. It hasn't been out in public. It's becoming more well known now. But every coffee and every coffee bean has different flavors. You have, just like wine, different flavor notes and all that stuff, right? So if I was to open up a coffee shop, my first thing that I would look at is, where is the audience at? Where is the niche at? Where are most coffee drinkers at? What do they not realize? Well, first of all, they don't realize what I just told you guys. I almost said explained. They don't realize what I just explained to you guys. They don't realize that coffee should actually taste good and it shouldn't be tasting bitter. They just think that's just the way coffee is. So then they add milk and sugar and all that stuff to it. And I realize that most people probably go to Starbucks. Starbucks is probably, it is the number one coffee shop or brand probably in the world. Most people go there. But most people also don't realize that when you get to a coffee shop to that level and that scale, consistency is key, right? So most people don't realize that consistency is key for a brand of that size. You should be able to go to a Starbucks in New York and a Starbucks in California, 3,000 miles away, or a Starbucks in China or wherever, and the flavors should be consistent. So now that you know that coffee beans all taste differently, different regions, different flavor notes, all that stuff tastes different. How on earth do you get enough coffee beans to supply all of Starbucks from one same farm and origin so the coffee all tastes the same? You don't. It's impossible. You can't. So how does Starbucks get natural flavored coffee? They burn all their beans. So it doesn't matter where they come from in the roasting process, they burn all of their coffee beans. So when you taste Starbucks coffee, you're literally tasting burnt coffee. And most people don't realize that. And so now that I know that's what most people believe, like Starbucks is great, Starbucks is regular coffee, blah, 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 blah. Coffee's supposed to taste bitter. I'm just going to add milk to it. Now that I know that that's where the place is, what I start to do is use copy or thought reversals or marketing that can address that. Naturally, coffee naturally tastes good, but most chain stores burn their beans. That could be a thought reversal video, and I could just explain what I just explained to you guys here, right? I could just go through that process. But what I'm doing is I'm creating copy and I'm creating marketing, addressing where the market is and showing flaws or bringing their attention to things they did not realize yet. In that process, I didn't even talk about my coffee shop. I didn't talk about our brewing process. I didn't talk about any of that. If I just created a thought reversal video that said, the big coffee chains burn their beans and you're tasting burnt coffee, or coffee naturally shouldn't taste bitter. These are all things that people think to be haven't realized before. And I create marketing around it. I raise curiosity. I bring them to that process. I didn't talk about my coffee shop. I didn't talk about our brewing process. I didn't talk about any of that type of stuff, but I move people's awareness. I'm moving their beliefs off of things they thought to be true. And that's just step one, right? I could do something also along the lines talking about how naturally brewed coffee tastes better than the big stores, just stuff that's attacking the belief that they have, or I'm moving their awareness to things they didn't think before, or I'm showing flaws in things that they believe to be true. Okay. So that's step number one, is you have to first understand the audience and the niche. You have to understand where their thinking is at. And sometimes if you're doing this on a one-to-one basis, you're just going to need to ask them questions. If you're a salesperson and you're selling someone a car, ask them questions so you can understand where their thinking is at and where their beliefs are at. If I was selling cars, my number one thing that I would ask someone is obviously what are they looking for, but what's also stopping them from buying this? What are their concerns? What are they worried about? Are they worried about something? And then they'll just start to tell you. In the conversation, they'll start to tell you where their beliefs are at. And then when you build rapport with them and you start talking to them, you can start forming thought reversals or ways to show flaws in their thinking or ways to show flaws in their beliefs. That's what the best salespeople do. They influence and they persuade. They help end suffering. Okay. Another thing that I could do too, going back to the whole coffee example, is I can actually, if I wanted to start a coffee shop, I could, so let me restart. If I was to go look at that Starbucks example right now, I realized that the audience might also not be going to Starbucks because of the flavor. They might actually like the coffee. And that's fine. Everyone has different flavors and preferences and stuff. So they might be going because of speed. Starbucks has a drive-through. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is to market my coffee shop above them, if their focus is on the speed of the drive-through, I can start to do thought reversal content that says coffee shops with drive-through actually take longer to get to your coffee. If you want coffee fast, a drive-through is probably one of the worst options. And I can start to thought reversal how you have to order still, then you have to wait in line, then you have to pull through. And on average, there's like a 7-minute wait. Whereas with a locally owned coffee shop, you can just use an app, call it in, pick it up, and they'll bring it to you. And there's no lines, no waits. Well, now I'm starting to shift people's perspective and showing flaws in drive-through. When they thought a drive-through was going to save them time, I'm showing flaws in how it actually takes more time, right? So it's that influence and persuasion, figuring out where their belief is and showing the flaws in it. So one of the biggest things with explaining that one of the reasons why I don't like it is because it also doesn't focus on building rapport. When you're focusing on explaining why you're right, why your stuff is the best, what features you have, it has nothing to do with building rapport or trust. And that is a vital piece of selling, of connecting, of influence, of persuasion, is building rapport. People have to trust you. And if I'm going in to buy a car, buy my Tacoma, and the guy just wants to tell me about the power windows and the 4-wheel drive and that it has black rims and all of this stuff, he's completely neglecting one of the most vital things, is that I have to trust him subconsciously before I'm ever going to buy from him. And that's where rapport comes in. And when you're constantly explaining, it leaves no room for rapport. This is exactly why in the Video 4X program, we talk about connection content based off of values, based off of core values, based off of beliefs. Build connection rapport off of that. Thought reversals is where the influence of persuasion comes in. And even in our what to do content, it still is about influence and persuasion, but educating in different ways. Now, this is why thought reversal content is so great, because it is really living in that persuasion mode. Thought reversal content allows for persuading. And if you guys want the thought reversal format, just go to YouTube and type in thought reversal. If you're not a Video 4X member, we have the whole framework broken down in a video there. But the problem is that when most people try to do thought reversals, they still focus on explaining, and it drives me nuts. I could go on a rant, but I'm not going to. Because in order to persuade, you have to find the real problems that people are having, not pet peeves. You have to identify the real, actual beliefs that they have. And a lot of times what people do is they go after pet peeves instead of actual beliefs, pet peeves that they have. So for example, if I was going to do a thought reversal video and I'm teaching people how to create an amazing video series, and I know that they might think a webinar is the best way, and that bugs me, and it just irritates me because I know a video series is better, and I created a thought reversal video that says webinars do not work, that's not going to be effective, because that's me explaining why I'm right, why my way is better. It's not ending a belief that's causing suffering. Because in order for me to do an effective thought reversal video that says webinars do not work, then I better sure as heck know that webinars actually don't work. And we know they do. There's plenty of people that see results with webinars. So we have to be very careful with what we're thought reversaling. Because if we're thought reversaling pet peeves, that's a version of us explaining. And what explaining is it's the ego's way of doing a thought reversal video. The ego of I need to be right, my way's better. So I'm going to try to thought reversal everything that goes against what I think the best way is, even though that way might be effective. Because we have to remember at the end of the day, if we're going to use influence, we're going to use persuasion, the way in which it works best is when we can identify a belief that someone literally believes to be true, but it's the exact thing that's causing them suffering. That's when influence and persuasion becomes the height of effectiveness. And if you guys are just going to try to use thought reversals and persuasion to prove things that are wrong that bug you, but are actually working for people, then you're barking up the wrong tree. It's not the point. The point is to end suffering. Using influence and persuasion to try to just prove that you're right or someone else is wrong, that's a version of you explaining why I'm better and you're wrong. in order to have effective content in sales and marketing, we have to literally identify the thing that is causing a problem that people believe or are unaware of that is causing the problem. And when you do that and you have proper influence and persuasion and patterns, you start to craft really effective messaging, you start to craft really effective content, sales strategies, sales mechanisms, and all that good stuff. So with that said, I would love to hear your biggest breakthrough on this episode. And I would love to hear areas in which you might have been explaining and you haven't realized it yet. And you can go to our new Facebook group called the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast, where we're building a community around this podcast to talk about episodes. We're giving behind the scenes. In fact, this episode right now is being streamed live as we record it to the people in that Facebook group. So head over there, let us know what you thought about this episode. And if you are a Video 4X member, head into the Facebook group if you heard this episode and let us know your biggest breakthrough from the explaining or persuading, and let us know how it's going to change your content and your messaging. So that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.